live.
Yeah, buddy.
Well, technically, we're in the past. We're not live. Imagine that.
Hey,
Us being live.
maybe we can do YouTube Live one day.
You know what? That's probably possible. We should try it out.
Yeah, we just need the equipment, the TriCaster, which is like thousands of dollars.
To be honest. Exactly, right? We need better quality equipment to do live shows.
Yeah.
We can't do it over the internet like we are doing now.
Yeah.
Hopefully when we're together again, back in LA.
Yeah.
Who knows? So how's it going, Parth?
It's going well. It's going well, dude. I was listening to some meditative Indian music before this, trying to relax and get the stress out. I've just been doing so much just research today, like on graphic design and all this other stuff,
Feeling stressed? A lot of work?
Yeah.
Too much editing?
Yeah.
Jeez. I mean, you kind of asked for it, to be honest.
I did.
That's crazy, because you're not only editing parts for this show, but you're also editing for your main show, which is Candid Chit Chats. Go check it out, folks.
Advertising for it.
Yeah, we'll advertise each other.
I know, right?
Hand in hand. So, little change of plans this time. We were going to do an Odyssey Academy episode, but we kind of got busy, and we didn't do enough research. So I feel like it would be unjust to give a educational episode about a topic we're not really doing a lot of research on. So
yeah.
The next best thing is doing an Odyssey Report.
Yes.
And we have a lot to talk about in respect to the news, don't we?
Oh yeah. So where do you want to start off?
So much going on. Yeah, I mean, today is a special day, isn't it? It is International Women's Day.
Yay.
I know, right? So applicable. To be honest, I didn't even notice before I turned on the computer and looked at the news.
Oh, really?
I was bombarded with Twitter and Facebook feed and just news articles in general. Do you know about International Women's Day?
Yeah, I actually got a Snapchat notification today that it was International Women's Day. Yeah. Snapchat did this whole
check that out right now.
They did like a whole little graphic design that, just showed, happy International Women's Day. And then I got a Snapchat from a friend who said the same thing, And I feel like the audience would think like, these guys, they're not going to like International Women's Day or anything like that. And to be honest, like I don't have anything really against it, to be.
What's wrong with it? Yeah. I love women.
Yeah.
What's wrong with that?
Like it's like.
Come on, let's be honest here.
Yeah, I mean, it's not. Look, like I'm not some misogynist who's going to be like, we should have an International Men's Day instead. Although I don't think that would be a bad idea.
That doesn't exist. That's not a bad idea, to be honest. I mean, what would it be? Just barbecues and watching football, probably.
Oh my god, yeah.
A few
sports,
beers. Yeah. Just pretty much the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
That's the International Men's Day. Hey, I'm not complaining.
Yeah.
Sounds like a pretty awesome day. But, it's a special day. I think it really is a lot of empowerment. That's what they call it nowadays, right? So, in respect to women fields, there's got to be equal pay. There's got to be equality. There's got to be less gender discrimination. It's all over the news right now.
Definitely. I mean, that's the main agenda for, the mainstream media nowadays anyways. I think there is I think it is deserving to shout out, the women out there who, are raising kids and they're really putting in their time and effort to raise their kids properly, it must be a hard task, because I have a little sister who's 5 years old and she's so hard to deal with for like 2 hours, let alone all day, so.
You have to have patience when you're a parent.
Yeah.
And you're really tested to your limit, to be honest.
Yeah.
I've seen you with your little sister, and I can tell your patience is like very thin sometimes.
So
like you're
thin.
At that limit.
So thin.
It's like, he's gonna lose it. I can tell.
Yeah.
Wait.
Oh yeah.
He's got it under control.
It's because I spend all day, and I don't want to say I spend all day around her, but she's always there. And whenever I'm trying to work, which is often enough, that she'll come in, she'll be like, hey Parth. And she's like, check this out, and it's just something so irrelevant, right? But it's a child, right? Like I can't expect anything out of it, right? But then I just give her a little bit of encouragement. I'm like, hey, look, that's awesome. Keep doing that. Or have you tried this? Or, this, that, blah, blah, blah. And then I'm waiting for her to leave so I can continue working. And then she just doesn't do it, so. And then
I don't think they don't understand that kind of that mentality, I suppose, because they're at an age where they're so inventive and they're slow into exploring that, structure doesn't apply to their minds. Like they don't understand the schedule. They're very much free and wild.
Yeah.
It's one of the best things, right?
Yep.
Imagine what it was like to be a kid again.
Seriously.
Less worrying, right?
Oh yeah.
Good old days, yeah. But in respect to today, we got a lot to talk about. So much stuff is going on in the news today, folks. So we got not only International Women's Day, we also got some news about North Korea. Apparently they're getting some missiles up, and they're actually producing some. And it's after the summit, too, so that's something to talk about.
Yeah.
And in respect to entertainment, Captain Marvel, we recently talked about that, came out today. So opening weekend.
Okay.
And surprise, surprise, who would have thought that they would open on International Women's Day?
Oh, I didn't even realize that.
I'm pretty sure they planned it out, right? They had the big epiphany around the meeting, and they're like, guys, we got to do it on this day.
100%,
yep.
Yeah.
Who would have thought? And we got a bunch of companies responding to International Women's Day. Companies like McDonald's, Budweiser. Why would Budweiser? Anyway. Old Navy, Lyft, Guitar Center, Draper James. Never heard of them. And we also got Walmart, too.
Do these women get like discounts from these companies, or free food, or free something?
Free food? You know what? I don't know. That'd be a good idea, to be honest.
Yeah, like a promotion.
Discounts only for women.
Oh my god!
I want to get a Big Mac. They get like 50% off, probably.
Can you imagine
Budweiser?
Can you imagine the other way around? Like literally, like
imagine
free
that.
food for men. Oh my god!
Free
Outrage!
On
like get them with the pitchforks
on Super Bowl Sunday.
Seriously.
Free beer. That would win a bunch of hearts, but also,
yep,
it would be chaos on Twitter. You wouldn't even know. So much hate would spice up. It's like a war zone, jeez.
I know.
But yeah, lots of things happening. Do you know about the Jonas Brothers?
Yeah, so the Jonas Brothers, I actually kind of used to listen to them. I was a fan, to be honest, when I was younger. When I used to watch Disney Channel,
All right. Like your honesty. All right.
Yeah. I liked them. So when I found out that they were releasing a new album, I found out through a couple friends. These actually, they happen to be girls, obviously. Like most guys don't really, my age at least, don't really listen to the Jonas Brothers.
All right.
So, but
right.
They were excited. They were like, "Oh my god, dream come true! Like this is not a drill." And I'm like, "Oh my god, are you serious?" My sister even was ranting about it. So
they're a boy band, right? Just to be clear.
Yeah.
So they are brothers, to be honest.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing they were part of a Nickelodeon, weren't they? Back in the day.
Disney Channel.
Is that how they
actually
started off? Disney Channel. Oh.
Yeah.
So they were aboard that whole scheme.
The scheme. Disney Channel isn't a scheme.
Look at it now, dude. It's not even something you would watch.
Oh yeah, probably not. Now it's all
back
about...
then it was the shit.
I feel like Disney Channel probably brainwashes the kids of today to, with all this leftist media.
Conspiracy theorist. You know what? It's probably got that tone to it, to be honest.
Yeah.
Nowadays, I mean, Disney in general, they're pretty much pandering, I would say, to most of leftist type of ideology.
Yeah.
And this is proof from, The Last Jedi, Star Wars, and even from today's movie we're going to talk about, Captain Marvel.
Yeah.
Something to talk about. So, who knows? Maybe they are brainwashing. Maybe that's their whole scheme and master plan.
Imagine manipulation. It's like behind closed doors. Ha ha ha! Let's fuck with the American male public.
Mickey Mouse is trying to screw over everybody and then take all our wallets. That's pretty much what they're doing. Yep. One day, man. One day. So we'll start with the Jonas Brothers.
Yeah.
Cute boys.
Yeah.
I date them. So they have a #1 song called Sucker, apparently. And they're saying, here's an article here, Billboard.com.
Yeah.
It's getting one of the top 100 Billboard spots as of a couple days ago, I suppose.
Uh-huh.
But, to ask the question, what really makes this so relevant, right? I mean, is it just, they're a couple of cute guys, good songs?
I mean, essentially...
Typical boy band, maybe?
Exactly. That's essentially what it is. It's like a Justin Bieber or 5 Seconds of Summer or One Direction or Zayn or, like all these boy bands. It's kind of like that, These girls, they go crazy because... I mean, especially because the girls that grew up with these guys when they were on Disney Channel at a younger age, they're probably looking forward. It's kind of like a nostalgia, right? They're using Law 16 of Power, which is use absence to increase your respect
16.
and honor, which is like you're so popular and then all of a sudden you disappear. And I think they even had a TV show at one point that wasn't really successful on Disney Channel. So they went from music to TV and then that kind of just dropped off and then they just disappeared, They separated as a band and then they got back together years later and here they are, #1.
#1, yep. They're pretty much taking the hearts of everybody. Oh, they were on Carpool Karaoke with... what's his name?
Is that a YouTube channel?
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's this late night show host, James. Is that what his name is? He hosts this carpool karaoke with famous celebrities like Ariana Grande, Bruno Mars, and they pretty much sing in the car and they drive places. And it's a very lovely video. It's pretty funny, lots of comedy, and I like this guy, to be honest.
Okay.
So he's a British guy, very British. He jokes around. He's not serious about himself at all. He jokes about his weight. So
nice.
It's hard not to laugh when you're looking at him.
Yeah.
Cool guy. Yeah. So to be honest, I don't have much to say about the Jonas Brothers. I don't listen to a lot of boy bands. I guess the only boy band I would listen to regularly would be a Korean pop. All boy bands.
Do you listen to that?
Sometimes, to be honest, it kind of pops up on my recommendations. I'm like, oh, all right.
Nice.
Pretty cool. You don't listen to K-pop, do you?
I have before, but it's not something that I would regularly listen to. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. It's a weird taste, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Not weird in the sense of bad, but it's really different.
Yeah, the weird thing to me is that I look at these guys in the Korean pop band, K-pop, right? And I think to myself, I'm like, these are probably some of the most feminine guys on the planet, like literally. And
like BTS, something like that.
What's BTS?
BTS is the very, very popular K-pop group. Pretty much an all guy, all boy. Group there,
right?
They're crazy. They were like on a American TV show award, and they won. So they won over like Taylor Swift or something like that. So they have a lot of cred.
Okay.
Now I suppose in respect to the music industry.
Yeah.
Good stuff, man. I mean, no one can deny how much of an influence they got, and crazy stuff to think that. Music celebrities now have a huge voice, even to the point where they're actually talking about politics, and then people just do what they say, apparently. Applaud them. Yeah, they get a lot of attention.
Yeah.
Crazy.
So what else?
Yeah.
You said something about all women's national soccer team, something like that.
So apparently, as of today, we have a number of teams suing based on gender discrimination in respect to the soccer game or the league, apparently.
Uh-huh.
So I think what they're pushing for is equal pay. So I think in respect to the teams, you have players and you have coaches and executives. They're making the argument that they're not getting as paid or paid as much as men executives or players.
Okay.
And all this is kind of over the top, in my opinion, because when it comes to sports, when you want people to be paid equally, that's pretty much against the whole ideology of sports, right? Because sports is a very competitive field.
Right.
And it doesn't make sense for that equal pay to just jump in and take over the economy when it comes to sports. What are your thoughts?
I'm not too sure, to be honest. It's something that I would have to look into, because aren't different players paid a different amount also, depending upon their skill and their abilities? So, for example, like Kobe Bryant would be paid a lot more than some random Joe on like some random team, right?
Right, yeah. Like in respect to the NBA, you have players like LeBron James, Steph Curry, making literally millions of dollars, probably even more. So I think in respect to the league that you're in, depends on your pay. So if you're part of a big league like the NBA or the NFL or the NBA, you pretty much have a potential to make a lot of money. So the big salary.
Okay.
I don't think these women's have that kind of those leagues, right? At least I don't think so. If I type in women's NBA, I don't think. Well, okay, I got something here. WNBA, so the Women's National Basketball Association.
Okay.
Is a professional basketball league in the United States. It is currently composed of 12 teams. Okay.
Wow.
Oh wow, they got the teams here and everything. Oh okay. So they got teams like the Los Angeles Sparks, Seattle Storm, Phoenix Mercury. I've never heard of these. So.
Me either.
So apparently this is a legit thing. Yeah. Jeez. I mean, do you really believe that equal pay will eventually come when it comes to these these arguments?
So let's talk about this a little bit, because I think it's important. I remember Jordan Peterson was talking a lot about this, the gender pay gap, right? This is actually how I introduced you to him. Remember that one video with Kathy Newman and they were talking about gender inequality?
Yeah.
So you have to realize and recognize that the whole, what was it, 78 cents to a dollar stat that they always put out there, for every 78 cents that a woman gets paid, a man gets paid $1. Well, that's such a misleading statistic, because you have to take into consideration all of these other factors. There are probably 19 other factors or 20 other factors that play into consideration, such as I don't know, for example, men take on more dangerous jobs, which, pay higher, right? Women tend to leave work because they get pregnant, right? Women tend to choose fields that, pay less. Like when it comes to like college professors, it seems like more of them are male. And when it comes to like, elementary, middle school, high school teachers, there's more female teachers. And see, these are things that you have to take into consideration. And there's so many factors. And I'm not even saying, this whole sexism or whatever is not a factor. It is, but it's much smaller than people would think. And if that's really the case, then why don't we consider that businesses are profit maximizing, right? And they're cost minimizing. So they want to minimize all costs and they want to maximize profits, right? So if they pay workers to work for them, right? Well, why don't companies just hire all women? Because that means they would have to pay 78 cents compared to $1, for respectively, like to men and women, right? So their costs for labor would go down a lot, probably around, 22%, so to speak. So if that was the case, then businesses would hire all women. Does that make sense? The mechanics of it just doesn't make really a lot of sense. So something to take into consideration. And this whole thing has been pushed so far, it's ridiculous, dude. Like, people are not even thinking rationally anymore. And I know we always talk about that, we always say that, but it cannot be reiterated enough.
I agree. It's a topic that keeps being pushed, and it's over the top, and people are getting tired of it, to be honest. But many people still do believe the gender gap, and there's this push for equality, and there's this push for equal pay, and that there is evident discrimination in respect to women in the workforce and men in the workforce. It's a much more complicated issue. As you said, the mechanics is very complex. We need to talk about specifics in regards to what field, what's the market like, and pretty much it boils down to individual merit, right?
Yeah.
So based on individual skills and on individual experience, how qualified are you for the job? How unqualified are you for the job?
Yeah.
Many people don't like to think about those specifics, so they compile it all onto this bandwagon in respect to equality and outrage.
Yeah.
People start getting pissed on Twitter, and they go against people like Ben Shapiro, and they shout in his face. And it's not a good time for anybody for that kind of argument to be always repeated. And we experience this just very regularly, and it's kind of annoying.
Definitely. And I think, again, like we reiterated last time, that I think that the majority of people are actually starting to see it our way, are starting to, like, not the majority, let's say, but like more and more people are starting to shift their political opinion a little bit. Every, day there's probably someone or, somewhere who's finding out about all these different points of view and considering different points of view. Now, I think that's going to play a huge factor in the 2020 elections, because Democratic candidates such as Kamala Harris, and Elizabeth Warren, they're the classic liberal, Democratic politics that they're going to play are, sexism, racism, identity politics. That's probably going to be their main platform, or something along the more like socialist lines, That's the typical, platform that they're going to provide. And it's almost guaranteed, right? That's why I liked Andrew Yang, because he's the first Democratic candidate that I've actually seen that is providing some sort of different point of view. He's not focusing on all this like other stuff like racism and sexism, and he's focusing on the economy, right? He's focusing on the future of the economy. He's focusing on getting people jobs, making sure they have, money for food, for shelter, for all this kind of stuff, which is so much more important, and it's stuff that people actually care about. And somewhere along the way, the Democratic Party has lost that touch that they used to have. There was a quote that I read from Dennis Prager. He started Prager University. So he's a conservative, I think it was a radio host show or show.
Young guy, right?
Yeah. And he said, if you had asked a few decades ago, a liberal would not have been a socialist. They would have been like, what the hell, are you kidding me right now? Like, and that's coming from a liberal too, So, I don't know, man. I don't know.
I think it's interesting because you always tend to, you in particular, you steer toward a very economic view in respect to, just how the Democrats are not approaching, right? So, I think what gets Elizabeth Warren and Kamala Harris so much attention is that people are very emotional in politics.
Yeah.
And this has been a very common, mindset for the past couple of years. And, these leftist views and the plain identity politics has gained a lot of momentum, in my opinion.
Definitely.
And it's kind of annoying.
It is annoying. For sure it is annoying. So I was watching, and I'm pretty sure I've told you this before, I might have even mentioned it on this podcast before, but I think it's worth mentioning again. I was watching a podcast, Joe Rogan podcast, with Neil deGrasse Tyson. And somewhere along the lines, he stopped Joe and he said, look, I've been thinking about something really important nowadays. And that this is that there are 3 truths in life. Okay. Have I ever told you about this?
Yeah, we talked about this on the podcast.
Okay. Well, one more time. There's an objective truth, which is the truth no matter what. Like, you can't change that. Number 2 is a personal truth, which is true to you. Things like religion, things like how intergender dynamics works, things like politics. Well, even actually, no, not politics, not necessarily. Maybe part of politics, but not really politics. Number 3 is the political truth, which is if you just say it over and over and over again, it just becomes true. You know, climate change is real. Climate change is real. You know, if you say that enough, people just believe it automatically without doing their own research, right? They throw out a few stats here and there. 97% of scientists agree that climate change is, happening. And then people just panic.
Isn't climate change, isn't that true?
No. So I'm not even saying that it's not true. I'm saying people don't stop to question that, okay, well, how much is climate change, really affecting our environment? How much of it is, man-made? How much of it is it going to increase the temperature, I don't know, like 20 degrees in the next 15 years or like 2 degrees in the next 200 years? I
think someone would argue it's affecting enough that it's going to change,
policy,
sustainable life in the next couple of years.
So
and you have articles and things saying like that.
Right. Definitely. We should definitely have a Odyssey Academy episode on that, because I have a few things that I did do research on this. That's like it's kind of shocking, and you'll see like certain examples from history where there were Stanford scientists and people claiming global warming was going to like destroy the world back in the 1970s. They were saying things like England's going to be underwater by the year 2000 and because of rising sea levels, and we're in 2019 and England's not underwater right now, And these are Stanford scientists. Huh?
I think people get dramatic in general when it comes to that kind of talk. I mean, for one, they want to get a lot of attention, right? So they say these very, outlandish type of statements, right? Where they say Britain's going to be underwater or California's going to literally crack from the Northern America and drown into the ocean. I've heard that before. So
yeah.
It's a lot of talk, in my opinion. Even if it is said by scientists. I mean, who's really the scientist that's really backing this kind of data and this kind of statements?
Yeah.
So
for sure.
It's a very complex issue, and our episode on it is going to be not for a while.
Yeah, no, definitely, I agree.
Because
I think there's a lot of research that needs to go into it.
There is a lot, to be honest, and it's become so politicized, right? So there's so many different views, and there's so much, polarized individuals in respect to this this topic at hand.
Yeah.
It's very hard to get a very rational and just calm conversation about global warming.
Yeah, no, I mean, even on the other side, right, there's still that same political truth. People say global warming is a hoax. And then...
Have you talked about global warming on Candid Chit Chats?
No, we haven't, no. Not that I remember.
Okay.
Not really, no.
No?
We probably will at a certain point, but again, like, people have to do research, right? And I don't really know if they're all going to do the proper research for that. But we'll see.
Yeah, definitely is a big topic, because you guys really focus on, what do you guys mainly focus on? Just relationships and personal endeavors in general. So you've talked about game, you've talked about...
the emotional thought process and mental biases that we go through, and then
psychological type of issues.
Yeah. That's only the first couple ones, actually. So, and then number 1 was toxic masculinity, and then the next one is actually going to be on different like political systems around the world. So like governmental forms, right? Such as like communism, dictatorship, monarchies, a democracy, a republic, these different, and then there's like the different variations of those different forms of government and different examples of like countries that have adopted different forms of government around the world currently today, and then also throughout our history, and which ones are the best ones, like what are the pros and cons of each one, each one's right, how is power shifted, with from the people to the government in each different like system or each different form of government, things like that, right? So we are sort of shifting the topics a little bit around now to something less psychological. But yeah, that's the next one.
Look forward to it.
Yeah.
I mean, talking about the government in general, most people tend to click off.
Yeah.
It's not a very attractive type of topic. And God knows our own Congress system and our own political system is just complicated as hell. We have so many things that are just confusing people, and why is everything taking so long, and it gets kind of boring. And I recently heard that the Speaker of the House, not the House, who's the guy that Sean Pence, remember that guy?
You mean Mike Pence?
Mike? No. Sean Spicer. You know that guy? He was the White House. What do they call him? The occupation. The guy who talks in front of all the media.
Oh, no. I didn't hear. What happened?
So apparently the recent one resigned. So
wow,
they're looking for a replacement. So I'm gonna look that up right now. But that's
have you noticed that a lot of people from the White House and like Trump's council are sort of retiring?
They're kind of
or not retiring, but they're leaving. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, they're
quitting, or they're getting fired.
Kind of interesting, right? Because
it
just goes to show what's really going on in the administration.
For some reason,
people are just departing.
I feel like there might be some sort of Richard Nixon type situation going on. Do you know what I'm talking about? Like something I don't want to say like the Watergate scandal, but something that's making people feel uncomfortable. Yeah.
Okay, because there is a lot of pressure in today's administration, right? So the Trump administration is under a lot of media backlash, just in general, because they're getting so much pressure from just the public in general, right? Everyone hates them. Everyone thinks that they're racist and they're sexist and they're just bad people in general. So it's no wonder that individuals are just resigning and not wanting any part in this kind of commotion. I mean, I think I would do that, to be honest.
Yeah.
Pretty heated situation there. And just for the record, I'm never into politics in general. Like, I hate debating, and I hate working for the government in respect to like bureaucracy.
It's too much stress,
Yeah, it's too much unnecessary stress, and you literally have the free world just always looking over you and judging you. So
yeah, it's funny.
Hard to be in that kind of position.
I was doing a little research for this upcoming episode of Candid Chit Chats on the different like forms of government, and we don't actually live in a democracy, right? We actually live in a representative democracy, or it's like a it's like a republic, right? So we elect representatives to go and make the laws for us and govern for us, people that we trust. And so if we had a direct democracy, it would not, like, you and I could literally fly over to DC right now and barge into Congress and like have an equal say, just like the senators would, or like the Congress men and women do. So this is a direct democracy, you see, and actually direct democracies are not that good either. They have their downsides also, because if the majority of people are actually convinced to do the wrong thing, they actually have the power, right? And the majority of people, I don't necessarily think that the majority of people understand politics and understand how the country should really run. I think like they definitely deserve a vote, but it's something that should be left up to people who actually have an interest in governing, and actually understand how the system really works and how to really deal with foreign nations and how to manage the economy, things like that. So, they definitely should obviously have a vote, but again, to elect representatives, which is so perfect because, you actually do need a little bit of government to help you, to help sustain your society, right? Because otherwise we wouldn't have a military, we wouldn't have a police force, firemen, and, the system, the government actually does provide a lot of good things for society. It just depends, you just have to find the right things for the government to provide, and the government makes sure that you have private property rights, your general human rights, things like that, you see, and they protect your rights so that you can actually go, produce something. Because if you don't, then all you're going to be worrying about is someone going to take my property? Is someone going to, come and steal all my stuff? And, you don't really have to worry about that because we have police force and things like that, you see? So
Yep.
Complicated for government is just complicated in general, right? You have to take your time to really sit down and think about it. But there was a guy, his name was Peter Turchin, and he wrote this whole book on secular cycles and how you'll see throughout history that different governmental systems, they go through these different cycles, these ups and downs, and it's like a shift from, it's kind of like in current contemporary society, it's like the shift from the left to the right, and there's a sort of a balance that comes about, right? But this cycle just keeps happening over and over. It's kind of like an economic cycle, right? We have up cycles and we have down cycles.
I guess it just keeps going on back and forth.
What was really
so
interesting was, and I'm not saying Peter Turchin said this, but I found this out from some other video that I saw, that it's very, very complex. So something that I really recently found out from this video watching it was there are cycles where, there's hold on, let me pull this up. Actually, this is really interesting.
Pull that up.
Idea here.
Yep.
So talking about
anarchies
and things like that, right? People. There's a small group of people. Sorry, what was that?
Nothing. We're just doing live research here. I think we're cutting in and out.
You're kind of cutting out. Sorry, my bad.
Okay. No worries.
Yeah. So I was saying, there's a whole process that. Okay, so there's basically an anarchy by a group of people, right? It's like they want to take down the existing government for whatever reason, right? And then they install a new government, and then basically that small group of people that took down the government has all the power now. So think of people like Lenin, right? The Bolshevik Revolution and whatever, right? All this stuff that went on in the Soviet Union, and then Hitler. And so there's sort of a fall and rise of new government forms, you see? So once one government comes into power, if that government form goes wrong and people are suffering, a small group of people from the masses will combine, join forces, and they'll take down that government. And then they'll put themselves into power, or they'll put some other people into power until that form of government also fails. And then this is how, it just goes on and on and on, right? And this is how the different forms of government have come about. And, I think so far our government in the U.S. has not really had any one of those types of that type of process has not really happened in the U.S. Maybe only when the Civil War happened in the Confederacy, they kind of wanted to, secede from the states and start their own little nation and whatever. But overall, that process just keeps happening over and over and over. And this is how this sort of cycle happens, and government forms change over time.
It's so complex. It really is.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to foreign issues. America's so involved around the world, and it's hard to believe that they're going to cut down involvement, especially when it comes to countries like Israel and even in South America, right? We give aid to so many South American countries. It's hard to believe that America is going to pull out anytime soon.
Yeah, yeah.
So, I mean, who really knows? I'm no expert. It's hard to say, but I'm interested. How
Yeah.
did you get so involved, not involved, but interested in just government in general? You like politics, or
Yeah,
at least I
yeah.
think you do.
It's interesting, actually. I'm not too sure. I think, so it started back when Trump was running for president,
It's
and
always Trump.
yeah,
Always gotta go Trump.
it's got to be, man. The guy has gotten a lot of people involved in politics because he says all these outrageous things, and then people start talking about it, and then the young population hates him. And so on college campuses, they're always like trash talking him. And then I had to kind of like look into him myself before I made a decision or conclusion, right? And then I was like, I mean, I've always been interested in government since even before Trump, actually. When I took a AP US history when I was in my junior year of high school. And I always loved history. Since the 8th grade, I've loved history so much. It's been one of my top favorite subjects, if not my absolute favorite subject, right? Besides economics, obviously. So just history in general was just something that I don't know what it was about it. Maybe it was just the fact that it's kind of like a story to me. History is kind of like a story. It's like the telling of growth, right? You see this small little country start off in the 13 colonies start off like they're so weak, they're so small, they have like barely any resources. They just have like the mindset of like, we're just going to build a great country. We are destined, they call this concept manifest destiny. We have the destiny to go out there and conquer the world, or conquer, not the world necessarily, but conquer the land, right?
World domination.
And so, I mean, they ended up, pretty much conquering the world. I mean, we are the number one superpower and have been so for a long time.
Oh, damn. Calling it now.
I'm calling it out, man.
Watch out, Russia. Yeah.
I know, right? So imagine a Russian spy comes and kills me.
I'm not saying anything.
So, I don't know, just the growth of that and how the whole process started, and they had unconventional thinking, right? The American colonists would use guerrilla warfare against the British, and it just like, it was just something different. Yeah.
Guerrilla warfare? What?
Oh, yeah, 100%, dude, 100%.
Can't make guerrillas fight. What are you talking about?
Because the British would stand in like one line and they just like fire, right? And the Americans would hide in bushes and like, because they were like very small in numbers compared. The British Army was 4 times as large. So, and they had so many, they
had to go guerrilla mode.
Defensive advantage, and I don't know, just like all this. I don't know. To me, it was just fascinating, the creation of what is now such a great country and such having that massive influence around the world. How did we start off? So, anyways, so just the formation of government and how this system or this form of government really lasted so long. I guess definitely so long, but has been, in my opinion and in my estimation, the most successful form of government around the world so far. And what was it based on, right? If you keep digging and digging and digging, getting to the root of it, what was the root cause of these principles? Where did they come from, right? And you can actually trace them back to many things, right? Like you can even trace back some of the things to the Bible, actually, and how like certain beliefs in the way that God created the world. And these principles are actually embedded deep into the foundation of America and how it was started. And so, people don't realize like English common law and that a lot of that stuff was adopted. People, here's an interesting fact, okay? The UK is an island, right? It's off from the mainland Europe, right? And there's 23 miles of really rough waters between Britain and France, okay? So this, I think it was 23 miles. So what happened was, throughout the Middle Ages or the Renaissance period or whatever it was, these European countries would fight each other and fight each other and fight each other, and they would waste all these economic resources, right? So a lot of their military, a lot of their funding and stuff would go into military and this and that and blah blah blah. And it's funny, ever since Queen Elizabeth I came into power in England, which was in like the 1500s, she played things different, right? She was the second female ruler of England, and so
England?
yeah, and they had, you know, this sort of I guess skepticism that a woman shouldn't really lead, but her leadership style was so different. She played defensive, you know, she played defensively the whole time, and so what happened?
They were
was,
a monarchy, right?
yeah. Even
Okay.
today, I think they're sort of a parliamentary. There's like a mix between.
It's like a different version of it. It's a parliamentary type of monarchy, something like that.
Yeah, the I don't think the monarchy has as much power nowadays, but it's still, you know, there. So what happened was, you know, she played defensive warfare, and so she didn't really involve the UK in a lot of these affairs of mainland Europe. And so what happened was a lot of the resources, economic resources, and like the people of the country stopped focusing on war so much, and they started focusing on production of just goods and, like, you know, services. So their economy.
They're very industrious.
Yeah. And so these ideas that they sort of, I think Napoleon even criticized the UK for being like just a bunch of shoemakers or something like that, right? And so that actually that insult was actually taken as a compliment by the UK, because they're thinking you're involving yourself in all this bullshit warfare, destroying your resources, wasting your time and effort, your citizens and everything like that are suffering, and we're over here, we're building a proper economy, and our economy is growing and growing and growing, and that is what's going to help us long term have more influence than you guys, or have more power than you guys. And this carried over with the settlers that, you know, the colonists that came from the UK to America. And so, yeah.
Were they the first to colonize? So I know they colonized America with the 13 colonies, and then they colonized India. I forget, like in like early 1900s probably.
No, so they colonized India in like the 1600s or 1500s, I think. And
way back then, right?
Yeah. For 300 years they were colonized there, and in 1947 was when the British left India.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they were there for quite a while.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, and I'm pretty sure they had other colonies as well, probably in Asia or
Yeah.
even the Philippines, probably that.
Even
I mean,
Africa and all that.
they were the biggest empire back then, and they were no joke. So
Yeah, there's this saying that the sun never sets on the British Empire.
that's true.
Yeah.
I never did.
Yep.
Crazy to think about. There were such. I mean, I'm pretty sure they practiced slavery.
Yeah.
Back then,
Yeah.
like no one's business. It was just like a usual thing back then.
Yeah.
So that's what made them a big industrious empire.
Yeah.
I guess that's how you do it. World domination. Just take everyone over.
Oh, yeah. You know, fun fact, actually, even African tribes would practice slavery amongst each other. So,
Fun fact.
yeah, no, seriously, like
That's just
African
a fact.
tribes.
That's not fun at all.
Well, I mean, not fun fact, but, you know, it's a fact that most people won't really know, because they think,
Yeah.
it's only the white men that, you know, slavery.
Did yeah.
But it wasn't necessarily
sure.
the case, right? Like, some African tribes would enslave other ones after dominating over them. And so slavery was already there in Africa. And what happened was white men came over and they bought these slaves from these other African tribes who had already, you know, had those slaves. And so, yeah, essentially that's what it was. We were actually, the white people were the first ones in, I think it was the UK or the US, to actually stop slavery.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I don't know about the history about that, actually.
No, that's an actual thing. That is 100% an actual thing.
Oh, wow.
And
Interesting.
it's funny because, you know, people in America, they're like, these white people, they're all so, you know, racist and this and that. And okay, but like, look at the,
Well,
you know, the long-term
when they
picture.
say white people, right? They don't know what they're talking about, to be honest. When they say white people and white supremacy, they don't really know anything.
Yeah, I think they're too quick to
History-wise.
judge, I think.
Too quickly to judge.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure. I think the Romans, didn't they start like the idea of a citizenship, and then that pretty much decreased slavery amongst like their own kind?
I'm not too sure,
that?
actually.
I forget. I'm not too sure about that either.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's back then, you know, people had good lives. when it came to their own countries.
Yeah,
So it wasn't all bad. I'm pretty sure, here and there, good ideas were coming up, and, history is a big thing. It really is.
Yeah.
And I can understand why you like it so much, because you like to talk about it a lot. I mean, even when we're hanging out, you always talk about history here and there. It always pops up.
Yep.
I mean, even have a friend who really loves history. He's going to major in it.
Mm-hmm.
Crazy stuff.
Yep.
I want to talk about this whole idea of the political spectrum in respect to just America in general. So, you call yourself a conservative, right?
I'd say
you have like a
I would
moderate
say
type
I
of view?
lean conservative. I used to be a little bit more so, but I realized that I still have more research to do before I just I just state myself as a conservative, because there are certain issues that I haven't gone over yet, and I've not thoroughly researched all sides and all different arguments. But I mean, eventually down the line, maybe 2-3 years from now, I'll probably solidify my opinion as to, where I lie. Obviously, I'll still be open-minded to the point where I can, move along the spectrum, but I think I'll have a better idea. As of right now, I'd say, I sort of lean conservative.
Oh, yeah?
What about you?
I think it's... You know what? I'm not too sure, to be honest, because I know I'm not left. I think we can both
Me
agree
too.
on that, because... I'm not on social media. I'm not really active in terms of, pushing leftist views and ideology in respect to their own field.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's hard to say, because I think part of the reason why we get along so well is because, we're rational and we like to be open-minded to just about everything. I mean, we do have our own biases when it comes to our own political views. So in respect to identity politics, we kind of see that as irrational, and we kind of have our own conclusions on that type of topic, and we talked about it in our past episodes.
Right.
But I would call myself a little more moderate.
Okay.
Probably.
Definitely.
But it's hard to say, because I can't really analyze myself politically.
Okay. Have you
kinda rough to say.
considered doing research on the different platforms of the different parts of the political spectrum?
There's like different categories, that you can like, get an idea of, and then you can like pinpoint your own area or region.
Seriously, So there's like libertarian, there's there's I don't know, there's libertarian, there's
Different kinds,
all
all different kinds. It's so, I don't know. It's kind of exhausting, to be honest. Talk about a bunch of political stuff and just politics in general. It's not an honest job. It's not an honest career.
I would
that's
say,
what really,
say so,
that's what really, puts me off.
So there was
Pulls me away.
there was a political philosopher in the 1500s, and I think we talked about this before. His name was Niccolo Machiavelli, and a lot of these, political, I guess, power games that go into it, like you were saying, it's not an honest field or whatever. A lot of the works of the 48 Laws of Power was based off of Niccolo Machiavelli. And his works, there are certain works that he's made. One was called The Prince. And he talks about in this book how a leader of a country, or the prince at the time, right, in the 1500s, would have to follow certain rules and guidelines on being an effective leader. And what that meant was your priority should not be morality and Christianity. Your priority should be being an effective leader. It should be, by any means necessary, you need to make sure that your country and your state is at the top of the game. Does that make sense? So, all these 48 Laws of Power, they're kind of based off of his work. And it's not 100% honest, right? Like, this game is just really not honest. You'll see a bunch of politicians lying. You'll see politicians putting on a very charismatic sort of face, or like a mask to appeal to the public, the mass public, right? This was in The Art of
feel like
Seduction. And they have to,
Yeah.
yeah. And because so many people, they have this bias in their head that if your presentation is on point, that you must know what you're talking about, And so politicians will exploit that, and so on and so forth. But Machiavelli would say this is exactly what is necessary to be an effective leader. You have to understand human nature. You have to understand the power, the way that it works, and you have to exploit it for the benefit of your state and for the benefit of your citizens. So, understand how the power game works, and don't follow this like path of morality and Christianity and all this kind of stuff. So, political science majors, a lot of them have to, I think, end up reading The Prince or something like that in one of their courses, and it's a dirty game, man. It's a dirty game.
Politics is definitely a game of alternatives. It reminds me of Game of Thrones. It's just you win or you die kind of thing, and that kind of mentality it's not really healthy, but most politicians, I believe, have good intentions, but they know they have to play the game in order to get higher in the hierarchy.
I agree.
Politics is so nasty, and it's so, what's the word? Dishonest and exhausting, and pretty much,
I don't really have a belief. By the way, you're kind of cutting out again, so
okay.
If like I end up interrupting you or anything like that, that's my bad.
No worries.
So I agree with you on that. Actually, I think politicians, they do have some sort of deep down, I don't think they have any malintentions. Things like I know I make fun of Bernie Sanders every now and then, and things like that, but I don't think he actually has bad intentions, right? Maybe deep down he's a good person, but he knows he has to play this game to sort of attain that power, right? He has to, this whole game has to be played in order for his intentions and his ideas to be implemented. And that's exactly what Machiavelli would say, right? Do what is necessary to, have your influence and have your effect on society, and as long as your intentions are good. I think here's the problem, right? In thinking about all this stuff like the 48 laws of power and morality, mixing morality and everything like that into it. Power is amoral, meaning it's not immoral, and it's not moral, it's amoral, meaning you're not supposed to take morality into consideration. So, if a person with good intentions uses these laws of power to put himself in a position of power, he has good intentions still. So Abraham Lincoln used to say that you want to really know the true character of a man, give him power. If he was already bad on the inside, he's going to become more bad. He's going to become more villainous. His bad intentions will show more prevalently. Or will become more prevalent. And so people with good intentions, if you give them power, their intentions will be seen also. Does that make sense? So power in and of itself is not a bad thing. It depends on the intentions of the person. So, it's because it's a game you kind of have to play, right? Society, and if you were left to be truly free in a society, we're going to create dominance hierarchies no matter what. And the people at the top of the dominance hierarchy, they should have good intentions because they're going to be able to effectively lead the state or the country. Does that make sense? So it's inevitable, right? You don't want people like Scar from The Lion King to be your president. You want Mufasa, right? Still a powerful guy, or still a powerful lion in this case, but you want he has good intentions for the kingdom, right? He's in a position of power, and he has a lot of power, but he has good intentions. So the kingdom runs well.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Nice use of analogies right there from Disney.
Yeah.
So I agree. Definitely. Because it does make sense, right? So this idea of power, it can really change people, right? And it's kind of scary to think about, because imagine if you were given just a bunch of power in respect to some sort of hierarchy, right? So let's say I don't know, you're highly influential and lots of people look up to you and you're very much an alpha male, right?
Yeah.
And this idea of power can really get to your head. So I'm thinking of examples like R. Kelly, Bill Cosby, Harvey Weinstein, people who had lots of power, right? I think we can agree on that.
Yeah.
It can get to your head, and it could ultimately lead you to abuse this kind of power so that you can get your own way and your own intentions and your own, I don't know, fantasies, I guess, could be fulfilled.
Yeah, your own agenda, right?
That must be evolutionary, that type of mentality, right? So I guess back then there were tyrannical leaders, I suppose, and there's this idea that humans can become very dark, right? And they become drunk in power, pretty much. So I think it's a primal fantasy that everyone has to have.
You're cutting out a lot, by the way.
Cutting out again. Don't know what to do to fix it, to be honest. I guess the internet's just bad today. Ay. Oh well. You can hear me now? Hello? I think you're cutting out too. You're kind of silent.
Oh, really?
Unless you're not saying anything. I'm not too sure.
No, I wasn't even speaking. Actually, I wasn't even speaking. Yeah, because I was trying to hear you, but like it was so choppy, I just couldn't hear it. You know.
It might be just me. I think your internet's okay, but mine's just cutting in and out.
Yeah, probably.
Probably. It's gonna be kind of a bad episode, folks. Technical difficulties.
Difficulties. That's no problem. I think the content is still pretty good.
Oh yeah. If people haven't clicked away. Let's see. What were we talking about?
Just power and how
power.
It depends on the intention of the person and that sort of thing. And you made some sort of connection to evolution or something like that.
It has to be some sort of primal desire that everyone has, right? I mean, it's natural for people to climb the hierarchy, right? It's just a question of how far you can get and how much power you can acquire. So I think too much power is not good. And I think the left recognizes this idea, so they try to cut down in respect to high officials on the hierarchy.
Right.
So movements like the Me Too movement and feminists in general, they will deliberately point out high-class individuals or high-level individuals in respect to the hierarchies. So, like, they target a bunch of comedians, they target a bunch of CEOs, and a bunch of even music icons, right? So, something to think about, and it's kind of scary how this idea of powers. Yeah.
What about R. Kelly? Like,
R. Kelly,
I know recently you sent me this video on R. Kelly and how he go ahead.
He got very emotional, to say the least.
He did.
The video, it's an interview between CBS, I believe, the news outlet, and R. Kelly was expressing his situation, and he was trying to explain how he's innocent and that he needs help or something like that. But the interview ends up being a very unexpected emotional rant from
100%.
from R. Kelly. Yeah, he kind of goes off.
I think that was his attempt to show the public that he's really not, guilty. Yeah. But that's sort of an emotional argument. You see what I'm saying? That doesn't necessarily prove that he's not. He just keeps saying that he didn't do it, right? And I want to believe him, right? But in my honest opinion, when I saw it, I was thinking like, there's something else that I just feel it. I don't know what it is. I feel like he might just be putting on a show. Yeah. That's just what I got. I got a feeling like that. I'm not too sure though. I can't say I'm 100% sure.
If it were me interviewing him, I would say this. I would, like, in the middle of his rant, I would say, okay, at this point, it doesn't really matter if you're guilty or innocent. You're in the scope of, modern day media and leftist individuals. They're going to tear you apart. You're now in the spotlight, and you were a successful music artist, and as of right now, they recognized how much power you had, and they're labeling it as abuse, and
Right.
they're labeling you as an abusive figure. So you're caught in the shitstorm, whether you like it or not. So
Here's one interesting thing people have to consider in any of these Me Too allegations, right? For example, in the Brett Kavanaugh and Casey Ford situation, or Blasey Ford situation. What was her name? Blasey Ford?
Blasey Ford? I have no idea.
The doctor who went against Kavanaugh.
Oh, the lady.
Yeah.
Ford? Some Ford, yeah.
Yeah.
But go on. I'll figure out her name.
So she actually, I think she started a campaign to raise money, and she got $1 million in funding from, what was it? The website that you start to, like, you have some sort of thing that you want to fund, and if people want to donate to your cause or whatever, they'll
GoFundMe?
Yeah, GoFundMe. Yeah, something like that. I think it was GoFundMe where she made $1 million and or Kickstarter, one of those two. I don't know what it was, but something like that. And she made $1 million. No one told her, because she had a good cause, right? No one took that money from her. No one said anything about that money. It went away. And even though Brett Kavanaugh got confirmed, what happened to that $1 million? Does that make sense?
Interesting. Yeah.
So what's interesting here is R. Kelly might have a point that, when one person says, oh, he did this to me, he did that to me, a bunch of the other women in his past are going to jump on board because why? They have, first of all, maybe he was, he maybe cheated on them or something like that. He's a freaking pop star, right? At the time. And so maybe maybe they have like some sort of grudge on the alpha male of their past. They're alpha widows, let's put it that way, right? Like that's the term that the rational male would say. So maybe they have some sort of personal vendetta against him. Another possibility is if they jump on board, they might get some sort of, they have nothing to lose. They have nothing to lose. There's no consequence that if they find out that you are falsely accusing him, I don't think there would be as much of like a thing against them, It's just like either they want to take this guy down or they want some sort of money from it. Does that make sense? Unless they find out all these women are staunchly lying about the situation, which, by the way, there's power in numbers in this situation, right? So
yeah.
It's just R. Kelly versus all these women from his past, right? So if every single woman is out there, the more women that are out there from his past lying about him or whatever saying that, the more women will have the bravado to get into that lie. Does that make sense?
They see a potential gain.
They're not going to be as a part of the fault or whatever the case may be. So now, I'm not saying this is 100% true, but I'm saying it is a possibility, right?
Yes.
And it might be an opportunity for these women to make some money or to get their name out. What was that?
Yeah. Sorry, you cut out for a second. I couldn't really hear you.
Oh.
So.
Oh, yeah. So, no, I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, something to consider is that these are intentions that some people have out there. So, to rationally take a step back and look at this situation is very difficult because, and like, if you ask me to judge this situation, even I have a bias. I have a bias towards the men, right? Like, that's just me personally. Like, I want to believe R. Kelly, right? Then that's my bias personally. Now, it's difficult to not have a bias. Every human being has a bias, right? But when I see this kind of thing, it almost I don't know. It's hard. I mean, it's believable, but it's also a little bit hard to believe at the same time, right? Which situations do you believe and which ones do you not believe? Because with and this is a great way, by the way, to transition into the whole Jussie Smollett thing, because that was a hoax also, right? So people are like, oh my God, see, there is racism out there. People are, attacking black people and white supremacy and this and that. And then the whole thing turned out to be a hoax. Well, and the left, the people on the left, they ate it up. They're like, see, this is total, evidence of racism and everything like that. And they fell hard into confirmation bias, right? Like they're just looking for the evidence. Yeah. that confirms what they want to believe. And then they find out this whole thing is a hoax, and that's a great way to segue into Jussie Smollett, by the way. So breaking news was today that Jussie Smollett was indicted on 16 felony counts following his Chicago attack allegations. So he's pretty much, dude, like his whole career is just done for. He was trying to get a bunch of attention to get his name out there and really, as an actor, get his name to be publicized, I guess, and created this whole hoax and this whole narrative around white supremacy and these people that attacked him. They found out that the people that attacked him were workers or workers on the set with him at Empire, and they were Nigerian.
Okay.
So it's like,
workers. Yeah.
Yeah.
Jeez. I mean, he really wanted to be the hero. He wanted to be a virtuous figure, and it ended up backfiring. So, there's people like this, and there's individuals that were willing to take the risk, right?
Yeah.
And it's just hard to believe how this story really had many people fooled, because lots of people were ready to pretty much burn the White House down. They were ready to just destroy America as is, and it's crazy to think about because people fall hardcore into confirmation bias.
Big time.
It's kind of a chaotic system we live in, and people are so influenced and they're so swayed. Sad to think about. Rationality is not a common thing nowadays.
I know. It's tough, man. It's tough.
To be honest, when you first heard the story, what did you think?
So I didn't actually hear the story before they found out that it was a hoax. So when I found out about the whole thing, that they had already uncovered that it was a hoax, and that's how I found out. So the first thing I heard about it was Jussie Smollett gets caught in a hoax or something like that, and I was like, oh, okay, what is that, And so I ended up looking into it.
Okay.
What did you think?
I heard it before the hoax, and my initial thought was, oh, okay, that's probably a usual thing in Chicago. Who gives a shit?
Oh, my God.
I was like, okay, normal day in Chicago. So I got to get in the news.
Yeah.
And then the next day, it makes big news.
Yeah.
about it being a hoax.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, I kind of just brush it off, but I guess many people would dive deeper into it, where they would make it very political, and people try to confirm that America's a racist, no good for nothing country.
Yeah. And I'm not even saying that there's no racism out there, right? Like there may be in very minor ways and things like that, but people act like we're living in like the 60s or something still, Yeah,
it's kind of sad to think about how a lot of people nowadays, especially people our age, young people, they're very much against America in general. So they get a lot of views from the media and from social media that the world they live in now needs to change and that nothing is okay.
I saw this one video a long time ago, and one of my friends showed it to me, that I don't know, it was some famous actor who made this little short clip video on how the interviewer was asking him, why do you think America is so great? And the guy has this whole diatribe about how America is not great, right? Like, we're 67th in math, we're 39 in science, we're around the world, and we're this, we're that, and our politicians lie, and this and that. And I'm sitting there like, I disagree with you're stating a few facts here and there, but I disagree with you so much. You're not seeing the bigger picture here, and this is how your typical liberal would think. And I mean, I'm not saying liberal as in the classic definition. I'm saying your current leftist, radical person nowadays would think like this. They don't want to appreciate what they have. It's like, you go out into the world, you're not going to see anything close to America. Maybe the UK or maybe, some other a couple, first world countries, but they're not anything close to America. The people don't want to learn about the history and the foundations of this country, the things that made this country so great, the freedom, what they fought for, right? Like, this is why I think it's extremely important to learn about history. And when you learn about the foundations of this country, okay, you get a better idea and a feel for how the country has transformed and what it was meant to be, right? And you find out that this country is actually way, way ahead of the curve compared to any other country out there, especially in regards to social issues. Like I said before, like slavery was, stopped here first, or maybe it was in the UK. I don't really know. But things like this, we're so ahead in our thinking, and people still want to criticize that we're not the greatest country. Dude, if we're not the greatest country, then leave. Why are you here? You have the option to move, don't you? It just, like, and maybe they don't have the option. I'm just exaggerating here, but I'm just saying, it almost pisses me off because, yes, the country has faults. We're not perfect, but we're much better. The system is much better than what other people have provided so far. Right? You don't understand the freedoms that you have, the right to private property rights, the fact that the police protect you as a citizen, from theft, and the fact that we have a military that protects protects like us as a country, and protects our rights, our basic rights that the government actually, again, protects. So yeah. What are you gonna say?
I think the Democratic tactic overall, their strategy, is to convince every individual that every domain of their life is corrupt. So let's focus on one individual, for example. The
Right.
Democratic Party will convince that individual that the police department is corrupt, the fire department is corrupt, the
Yeah.
banking system is corrupt, the economy is skewed and it's against you, the academic system, the public system is worse than ever and it's corrupt, and every other system you can think of, universities, even fast food companies, I guess, are screwing you over. It's just everything in a person's life has to be considered corrupt, and it gets people very emotional, and it gets people, very uneasy. So I think that's how they ultimately recruit a lot of their supporters. So they're using this idea of fear to get people riled up. It's kind of nasty, to be honest. And not only that, they're playing all these identity politics as well. So they're calling out politicians, and they're calling out people in power, and they're starting movements like the feminist movement, the Me Too movement. It's very nasty, in my opinion. That's the one word I would use for their strategy.
Yeah.
Kind of nasty. And I'm not trying to defend just the other side in general, like Republicans. They've played nasty as well.
Yeah.
So
I agree.
the whole political spectrum, it's, a dishonest field. That's what I would call it.
Yeah, definitely. It's. I think you brought up a really good point. It's that there's corruption in the police department, right? Like police brutality. There's corruption in the economy, right? The economy's skewed against you because
gender pay gap.
Yeah, gender pay gap, right? Like the rich just keep getting richer, and I mean, I'm not even saying that that's incorrect, but they also provide jobs too. So, they're not giving you the complete picture. You have to really understand the fundamentals of history, of economics, of political science, all this kind of stuff to really get a full picture. And even then, you're not going to have a full picture because you don't have access to information that a lot of other people do, right? Like you don't really know what's going on in the White House. You see, you don't really know the actual numbers, right? It's very difficult when people say like, I have the answers to the political, problems. They don't, dude. Like, who does,
A lot of journalists say that. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's difficult, right? But here's the thing. I think especially the liberal left, hardcore radical left will target young people because they're just starting off in like the workforce, for example.
They're the most influential. Yeah, that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, they're the most like prone to be influenced, right? It's almost like if I'm just getting out of the workforce, I'm not gonna be rich. I'm not gonna I mean, unless I'm coming from a family who can provide for me and things like that. But I'm not, like, just coming out of the workforce, I'm already going to have a hard time. And it's going to take a little bit of time for me to accumulate wealth. And so they play on these younger people and say, the rich are keeping you poor and things like that. And I'm like, okay, but, there's a fact. I think the studies show that 30% of people who are liberal now, by the age of like 35 or something, they turn conservative. And I'm thinking to myself, wow, really? Why is that? Well, it's because, people actually accumulate more wealth. They don't want to be taxed so much and have that tax redistributed to the next generation, like that's of young people, right? They work their ass off to make this money. Well, people they don't think about this kind of stuff, They don't look at the long-term picture. No. That's the problem, I think, or at least part of the problem.
They're very impulsive, and they're very in the viewpoint of the present time. They never really take time to consider not only their own future, but just the future of the country itself.
Yeah.
And I think many would argue against me because they would say, we do care about the future of the country, right? Look at global warming, look at the economy, and look at, police brutality and the gender pay gap. Does this look like a good future to you?
Yeah, yeah.
You know what? You may have some points there, but I think we can all agree that we need more rational and honest conversations on all of these topics.
Yeah, there's a deeper meaning behind a lot of these things, right? We haven't uncovered the full story.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You need to become educated. That's the thing.
It takes time to accumulate a type of career, right? And I think a lot of college graduates nowadays, they are not only frustrated, but they're mad at the world.
Yeah, seriously.
They just hate everything. It's like, oh, I don't have a job, or I didn't get the job I wanted, or like my degree is worthless. Let me start a podcast. It's kind of
that's me.
Yeah, people, they get mad. It's just like, yeah, the world sucks. It's kind of that mentality nowadays. Yeah. And I think millennials now, they say millennials are the most depressed generation nowadays. Do you believe that?
I would say so, yeah. Only because they're so influenced by social media. That's the number one factor, in my opinion. Social media. They're consistently feeling like they're missing out on something. It's called FOMO, right? Fear of missing out. And they're seeing all their friends putting up all these fancy images of like themselves having so much fun and this and that, and they don't realize they're not even having fun in the moment. You see what I'm saying? They're so worried about what other people think. They're so worried about making sure that everyone else knows that they're having the time of their life so that they can basically climb this social hierarchy, this social status hierarchy. And I wouldn't say it's completely incorrect or wrong to do so, but you need to do it correctly. Understand the influence that social media is going to have on your brain, the way you think. Understand how you're going to feel at times that when you see your friends partying and everything like that, you're going to feel like you're missing out on stuff. You just have to be able to prioritize the right things in your life. But I'm going to go off on a whole tangent there. I don't want to. But yeah, millennials are depressed, dude. That's why Bernie Sanders appeals so much to them. They're like, free college, Anytime you hear... by the way, I was listening to this video on Venezuela, and it's like the collapse of its economy and what drove it and everything. And the guy who was conducting this little lecture was saying, anytime you hear a politician saying the word free, replace that word with the F-bomb. The F-U-C-K. So literally just every free college. I want to give you free college. It's so. Anytime a politician says free,
oh wow,
watch out, because there is no such thing as a free lunch. This is a saying in economics. The money is going to have to come from somewhere, right? And that's going to have a whole chain of side effects that you have to understand. And some of these things are going to lead to what's called a vicious cycle, which is wrong and which is going to lead the economy into a state of stupidity, right? It's just going to be bad. It's going to stunt economic growth in the long term. Assuming, for example, free college is even the answer to all of our problems, because automation is on its way. We talked about this before. College may not necessarily be the answer for a lot of these people, right?
Right.
So who knows, man? Who knows?
I think what appeals to most of Bernie Sanders supporters is that most of them are in debt. they have a large amount of college debt.
Yeah.
So not only are they mad at the federal government, but they're mad at themselves because they had this huge load to deal with, this huge debt to pay off.
Yeah.
And, you know, they don't have the job they want. Maybe they have a useless degree. And they're in a crappy standing right now. And they just hate life. So.
Yeah, you know, I also think that for example, when Bernie Sanders will say free college sounds like such a morally uprighteous thing to say, you know? It's like, I want to educate people for free because there are people out there who don't have access to educational materials and things like that. And I'm thinking to myself, that is total fucking bullshit. Because if you really want to be educated, you can find so many other ways to educate yourself. There are so many free videos on YouTube. If you don't have access to internet, like, that's a different story. But most people do. You can find the education on YouTube. This is pertaining only to education, okay? Now, I'm not saying the quality of the education you're going to get is going to be the same, but as like a university or whatever. But you can find out so much information online. You can find out, there is a lot of free information out there, by the way. You know, it sounds so right. Does that make sense? It sounds such a nice thing to say. But the college environment is getting more and more competitive nowadays. You have to realize the degree is not going to be worth as much to any of these companies that are hiring if everyone else is going to college. So there's been a massive influx of people going into college nowadays. You know, 40 years ago, 50 years ago, a bachelor's degree used to be worth something. Nowadays, it's worth shit. It's not worth anything, you know? It's like, okay, well, it depends on what university you went to, what your GPA was. Were you president of this club, or what position did you have in that club? What else were you involved in? What internships have you done? You have to consider all these other things because it's become such a competitive environment. Now,
why are things becoming so competitive? I don't mean to cut you off, but
no,
it's
just
fine. Interesting to think about.
So I think it's because there's a lot more people realizing nowadays that college, you know, is the way, but it's not really the way, in my opinion. You know, 50% of people that come out of college don't even get a job. That's an actual stat that Joe Rogan said. Crazy, right? And I'm one of that 50%. And I had an actual relevant degree. I mean, again, I'm not going to say I didn't actually look as thoroughly as I should have. That's also my fault, you know. But the thing is, college may not necessarily be the way, because there's also some other things you have to take into consideration, like, what was it? Affirmative action, right? Affirmative action, where the whole, like, that whole concept is also being somewhat applied to companies, right? Where it's like, these people are coming in and out the door and whatever, and it's not 100% based on pure meritocracy, right? It's also based on a variety of factors, right? Like all the things that I talked about before. A guy who worked his ass off to get like a 4.0 GPA may not get hired as compared to the guy who has a 3.8, because that guy he was maybe a part of the the student union that, you know, the liberal student union or whatever, you know, and he fights the right.
It's very selective nowadays. It's completely selective when it comes to companies and hiring. And I think most college graduates are realizing that it's not enough to just have a fancy piece of paper from a signed, president from a university that no company really knows. That's not going to be enough. Yeah. Right? They want experience. And they want to know if they could invest in you. And companies, they're all about investment. They're all about increasing their revenue, and they're all about keeping relevant to the market.
Yes.
And that's the real world. And it's really harsh, to be honest, how the real economy works and how you need to adjust yourself and adapt. Because it's a tough thing to get into the workforce and stay relevant. It's completely tough, and it takes a very, very tough person to do so.
Yeah. To stick in the game, right?
Stick in the game, yeah. It's
so kind of. Yeah. Did you hear? I think it was, what was his name? Jack Dorsey, Twitter CEO or founder of CEO.
Oh yeah.
was on Joe Rogan recently with this guy, with her free speech, or with his assistant or lawyer or whatever.
Lawyer. She was a lawyer, yeah.
So she was on, and they were on with Tim Pool, staunch conservative, right? So what did you think about the podcast? Did you see it or no?
I saw it. I saw a good portion of it. So,
yeah.
My overall opinion,
yeah,
I think it was very skeptical. So
right, they were being attacked.
They were getting attacked basically by Tim Pool, and Tim Pool seems like a very intelligent individual. He really knows his stuff, and he knows how to keep the pressure on.
Yeah.
So he's the kind of guy to really question a big company like Twitter. So going to the Twitter side, their answers are really shaky, and they stick to their script, right? And they kept saying words like, "Oh, it depends on the context." Really, it's about the context. Well, we can't really judge because of the context. They were very cornered.
I think the what's it called, the strategy that they had was evade, right? Evade. Basically, the woman actually, she reminded me of Hillary Clinton a little bit. And the reason I say that is because the facial expressions, the way that she was making, the way that she was responding to Tim Pool, right? It was like so calm and collected, but the problem with that, I think, was that it seemed like she prepared her ass off to make sure that she didn't react, right? You could tell she was a little bit angry and a little bit frustrated here and there, but overall, I think she kept her cool. Yeah, she kept it together and said, like, look, it depends on the context of what you're talking about. But the way that she was saying it was just so, like, I don't know. It was so, I felt like it wasn't genuine. Does that make sense?
Okay.
It was almost like she was putting on a poker face. Like, you just can't get in. You don't really know what she's really, really feeling or what's really going on behind doors. To her credit, though, I did agree, and I sort of, not agree, but like to her credit, I did sort of understand her position, and some of the things that she said did actually make a good amount of sense. Jack Dorsey, on the other hand, did seem to get a little bit emotional. He was like really trying to communicate, look, like, we are trying, give us a little bit of time. There's a lot there's so much that we're experimenting with right now that we're not going to just be able to put aside all of that, all of our innovation and what we're doing for the future just to focus on free speech right now. Like, that's one part of the Twitter, but we're experimenting with all these new technologies that's going to make Twitter much better for our users. So, give us some time. We're working on this.
I do have to give Jack Dorsey some pity because he has started this insane platform where it pretty much provides a voice for everybody in the world.
Yeah.
And to monitor that in any way is insane. So I think Jack Dorsey throughout the entire interview didn't give that much input as much as his lawyer did. So I think Jack Dorsey isn't the kind of person to really answer a lot of controversial questions, because it's his job to keep Twitter Twitter's good image, right? So I don't believe he really contributed much to the conversation.
Yeah, no, I agree.
He kind of seemed quiet. He's not really a talker.
He's not.
Yeah, he kind of just plays he takes the back seat, right?
Yeah.
He's just the guy who makes the minor decisions, because the company's gotten so big, right? And I'm pretty sure most of it is out of his hands now. So, I mean, who can blame him, right? He's watched his creation turn into something huge.
I was looking through the comments of that video section, and one of the comments showed emojis for all four of the people. And I don't know if you've seen the emoji of like the character that of the basically the face where it has the hands on its chin and it's like thinking really hard. And he said, "This is Joe Rogan right now, right?" And then there was one with the angry face, the angry face emoji, and that was the lawyer. And then there was one with like the face where it was about to start crying, and that was Jack Dorsey. And
Yeah.
there was one I
He
think
kinda
with
seemed
like the
uncomfortable.
nerdy face, and the nerdy face was like Tim Pool apparently.
Oh, look at this comment here. This woman is the human embodiment of an automated email response.
Seriously, dude, I'm telling you, like calm, cool, collected. Like she just has these automated responses, like Hillary Clinton would. It just doesn't seem natural. Like there's no genuine like human connection there, or it doesn't feel like there
Right.
wasn't much.
You know what? I think Twitter's just really trying to cover its own ass right now because they're under so much fire, and it's hard to deny how much uh, controlling they're being because they're really going all out. So they're banning people and they're suspending a lot of accounts and they're really restricting speech on Twitter itself. So, and
Yeah.
they constantly go behind their policies, right? Their terms of service. They're like, well, if they violate our terms of service, then we have the right to take action. Well, those terms of service themselves are kind of iffy, right? Because they kind of lean toward leftist ideology. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, so what I think the argument Tim Pool was making was that look, so the lady kept saying, look, they don't follow our rules. If they don't follow our rules, they get kicked off our platform. It's our rules, right? But if your rules technically are, in the terms of service, following more of a leftist agenda or more of a leftist opinion, right? With the whole like gender, what is it, what was it?
They were talking a lot about trans communication, right? And
Yeah,
how
like
you can't like call
misnomering.
a certain you can't like misidentify them or something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
It's kind of
And,
stupid.
so someone like Ben Shapiro who is saying you have to have an XX chromosome to be considered a woman and XY to be considered a man, and that's based on biological science. You cannot say that this is, a microaggression. This kind of goes into the whole microaggression category too. Oh, I feel like I'm being harassed because this person is saying that I'm not a woman or I'm not a male and I want to identify as one, but so I guess Twitter considers that an attack if it's directed at one person. See, but if they are having conversation and it's not necessarily, I mean, to the one person it will be a hurtful thing to say. But remember, we talked about even in the foundations of this country, right? The First Amendment to the Constitution in the Bill of Rights was freedom of speech, or at least part of it was freedom of speech, right? And then freedom of religion, freedom of the press, whatever. But freedom of speech meant as long as you are not, saying insane things like, for example, if you were sitting in a theater, a full theater, and you yelled fire, okay, like out loud, and there was no fire, okay, and everyone started panicking and everything, then you would be in the wrong. That actually is
Right.
not protected under the law. You cannot just say stupid things like that. Like that's out of bounds. But what constituted that was that you do not cause mass hysteria, or that you don't harm someone. Like you really, really don't like harm other people by way of influencing them through your words, like by saying, for example, fire in the theater, and they start like everyone starts running and things like that. But freedom of speech is essentially a protection for your ideas. See, that's the key there. You are allowed to have whatever opinion you want in this country. You have the freedom to do so, because every other form of government in the past, or other countries have had restrictions on that. If you thought a certain way religiously, you would get persecuted. Or if you didn't think a certain way religiously, you would get persecuted or whatever. Right? You would be considered. I don't want to say considered crazy, but like the church would take action against you if you had certain ideas. Like Copernicus had the idea that the Earth was not the center of the universe. And the Earth
Right.
did not. The Earth was revolving around the sun, not the other way around. So, but the church executed him because it wasn't according to their ideas. So now, freedom of speech is supposed to protect your right to ideas. See, now going back to Twitter, if if Twitter's terms and services involve a certain ideological idea or an opinion, but they don't involve or take into account the other side's opinion or anybody else's opinion, and they say that this is a microaggression if you disagree with this side, that is false. That is wrong conduct on the part of Twitter. And the government has the right, I think, technically, to come in and say, look, we're suing you because of freedom of speech or whatever. You're violating the First Amendment for a lot of these people because you're banning them from speaking on this platform. When if all they're trying to do is communicate their ideas, then you are you're banning them. You are violating their First Amendment right. And this is a right that the government can come in and interfere and say, look, you are violating this essentially. We're going to take action against you.
Oh, yeah.
You see? That's the basis of government.
I don't think it's a good idea to have the government involved in this kind of situation, because when the government gets involved in any kind of, platform like this, they tend to ruin it.
Yeah.
Just through past experiences. But I do agree with you. It is a violation, and they could technically take legal action, in my opinion, because they're literally silencing people. So,
right.
I mean, I think Twitter's agenda is to protect as many individuals as possible, right? They really want a clean, civil platform, because that not only gives more advertiser attention, but it also keeps the level of discord at a low. So they're trying to find a balance, right? And they're trying to protect the certain individuals. And I think now groups of high interest are like trans people, furries, I suppose. What else has a lot of attention that gets a lot of backlash? Just those groups in general, right? So
right.
There's others too, but I think Twitter has the obligation to protect them because they're getting the most hate. But I think they're stepping the line in terms of overprotecting them, where they're actually taking away others' speeches or their right to speak. So it's pretty evident that Twitter can't handle this, right? They can't really balance. They can't find a good balance,
right?
Between,
or at least they haven't
protecting
yet.
People. They haven't yet, right? And I don't think they're gonna find a balance anytime soon, because this massive amount of political tension, it keeps building and building, and it's hard to monitor all that on any kind of platform. I mean, even on YouTube, YouTube's guilty of demonetizing a bunch of videos, and their terms of service keeps getting updated, and they find sneaky ways to get past certain videos, and they ban them or they take them off. So it's constantly adapting, these platforms. So the hate is real. It really
Seriously.
is.
Yeah.
You can't really get past it, and it's interesting how platforms like Twitter are reacting to this kind of stuff, because they agreed to do this interview. But in all honesty, do you feel like you would side with Twitter more after this interview, after watching it?
I would, to be honest. I would.
You would? Okay.
I would, yeah, because I understand the stress that especially Jack Dorsey would have to go through, right? I can understand his position in the sense that if to be balanced is very tough, because who are the people that are using Twitter more? It's probably people on the left, more so, I think, than just numbers wise. Let's estimate. I'm pretty sure if you looked at it, it's probably I'm not throwing out any actual numbers here. I'm just guessing 60% of them would be on the left, right? As compared to the rest being whatever else. But especially because there's a younger audience. Now, I have sympathy for him because I'm sure he's trying to do so much. As a CEO, your job is very difficult. You have to you're experimenting with all new types of technology to bring Twitter ahead of the game. You're involved on such a massive platform that there are so many people tweeting every single day that you can't necessarily keep a tab on every single one of them, right? I know you have people filled out in the positions at the company to be able to handle that stuff, but the pressure that you have to deal with as a CEO is very difficult, and I understand that, you know. So I did have a little bit of sympathy for them because it seemed like they're trying, you know. And I think we have to. I think the fact that they actually chose to go onto these podcasts to talk voluntarily to talk about this shows that they're trying to make an effort, right? They're trying, you know. It's not like they're like manipulated by the Democratic left or anything like that, or at least not to as big of a degree as we think.
Yeah, it's so much tension nowadays, and that kind of platform, there's an incredible amount of stress, right? And I don't know how long you were on Twitter. I was never on Twitter, but I mean, even being on it for like a couple minutes, you can really sense the hate and you can really sense the arguments online. People have no hesitation when it comes to being just a different kind of person
on Twitter,
when communicating online. Yeah, on Twitter. Yeah. I mean, it's such a toxic type of platform now.
Yeah.
It really encourages that kind of argument and hate. Not to say that it's all bad. I'm pretty sure that some of it's good communication between individuals.
Right.
It's still an online platform where people can communicate instantly. And even the president uses it. So it's obviously a very important platform in today's modern day civilization.
Yeah.
It is definitely making history, to be honest.
Oh, yeah. I agree.
But yeah, I'm not a part of it. I'm not a part of that history.
No, me too. Like, I'm not on Twitter a lot, to be honest. I have an account. I don't really use it. It's got like I tried it out at one point for like a couple weeks or like 1 week, and I was like over it. You know, I just feel like it's a ranting machine. You can, I don't know. It just seems like a ranting machine to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it pretty much is.
Yeah. It's, yeah. Is there anything else you have to say on Twitter?
Anything else to talk about Twitter? I don't know. I don't really have the experience. I don't know what it feels like, to be honest, to have a real argument online. Have you ever had a real argument online? Like you just like went all out against like a random person?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah?
Dude, let me tell you.
Oh, Facebook, yeah.
Yeah, on Facebook, yeah. I mean, a couple of arguments here and there. The one that I do remember, I don't get into them now because it's impossible to win, dude. Like, and it's not even just winning, but like it's impossible to get your point across. Over text. You know, people are just completely different. They're so stubborn. But my ex-girlfriend actually posted something. She's very, very progressive. Like, she is. Talk about the definition of hardcore leftist. This is the girl to you. She wants, like, she's like all out socialist. You know, she's all out like female supremacy practically. You know, and like things like that. But anyways. She posted something very leftist and whatever, and I argued a different point. And I wrote this thing out, and so many of her friends jumped onto that comment and started attacking me. I was like, what the hell? I'm just trying to have a conversation here. I never said anything even offensive, or at least in my opinion, it wasn't really offensive, you know, and it should have been offensive the way that I was saying it, you know? And so... I don't know. With her, it's you can't win, you know. So, and not just her, but I'm saying like, you know, a lot of these people that she surrounds herself with are also very, very, very like far gone on the left. Let's put it that way.
Do you feel like it's kind of a cult?
To a certain degree, yes.
Ask that question.
Oh yeah,
to a certain degree. Okay.
She would say, dude, like, oh my god, it's so crazy, you know. Actually, just a couple months ago, this same girl, ex-girlfriend, she tagged me on something on Instagram with this speaker who is from a guy called, I forgot what his name was, but he's from the Young Turks, which has been shown, Dave Rubin has talked about this, to be shown as a very corrupt organization that spreads false information and everything just to get attention, right? And so this guy from the Young Turks, he's a very handsome guy. He's jacked, like he's like a model on the side, and he's posting consistently about politics, and he's very leftist, okay? So she tagged me in one of his Instagram posts, and she told me, I dare you to go debate this guy. He's going to kick your ass or something like that, right? And so I'm thinking to myself, This guy, all he was saying was the complete like there was not much factual evidence behind what he was saying. He was just very, very charismatic. He was very, very, let's say, outspoken, and he was very much a morally uprighteous person, right? And he started like every time he would have a conservative on like a call, he would basically laugh his ass off at them to make them look dumb. And this was his little tactic, right? It was a little tactic to make the audience members feel like, see, look how dumb this conservative is. Look how dumb their ideas are. Like, they're so backward thinking. They're so this, they're so that. And she would fall for this kind of stuff, like very, very easily, right? It's because I don't know what it was, but she basically tried to incite me into fighting this. And I'm thinking to myself, you are brainwashed into this cult-like thinking. And I know because, you believe everything that the leftist media does or says, and you only follow these hardcore progressive outlets. So you're not getting the full plethora of information. And I'm sure it's not just her. There's all these people on the left that are like this, where they only follow these hardcore pro-left media outlets, let's say like Vox or Vice, right? Or I think there were some like Hispanic ones that are very, very pro-left, right? And so people like this, I agree with you, dude. Like, it is partially like kind of like a cult, you make them, if you can make them believe and follow your every word, you pretty much got a cult.
Kind of scary, isn't it? Yeah, that kind of realization. To be honest, I think all political groups are to a cult to a certain degree, because it's all about recruiting other people to your cause. And ultimately, they just want followers. I think that's ultimately what they want. They want followers, they want more influence, and they want more attention, so they could ultimately change the policies of government. And America has been like that for the past, 100+ years in respect to Democrats
I agree.
and Republicans.
Yeah.
It's kind of scary to think about. It really is.
Yeah.
And I kind of found that out. And I'm
go ahead.
Yeah, that's pretty much that was what I was going to say. I'm like away from all the chaos.
Yeah, no, I think to a certain degree it's kind of healthy to stay away from like the extremes, right? I think in today's climate it is a little bit worse on the left, and it started so much on the left, but nowadays it's also starting to become a little bit more and more on the right, because they're doing this as a counterattack to the left. You see? Because they almost, at this point, they've realized, I think, that they have to fight fire with fire if they want to be noticed, if they want to sort of make sure that the young people of America understand the conservative ideals. Let's put it that way. I don't think that, how do I put this? I'm trying to like form my words here properly.
Mm-hmm.
I think people on the right are also very, very, they're becoming that way. Sort of like, okay. I don't want to say they're becoming like so much more that way, but remember what I said on the last podcast, that what does it even mean to be on the right nowadays? Like, does it just mean you're not on the left? Because what's considered a conservative? Isn't it like 80+% of that political spectrum nowadays? Even if you're a moderate by like 2 decades ago standards, you're a conservative now. Right? Or even if you're a liberal by like 40 definition of like 40 years ago, you're pretty much a conservative now. You see?
Yeah.
So like, what does that even mean? But I don't know, man. I think at the end of the day, it doesn't really. I remember Dave Rubin on one of his episodes said that it's not about being a conservative anymore. It's about just getting people away from this toxic thinking on the left. That's it. You see?
Yeah. I think we need more people like Dave Rubin, to be honest, because he is a liberal, right? He identifies as a gay liberal, and he's constantly being invited to all these conservative talks. Like, he's traveling around with Jordan Peterson, and I think he went to Australia recently with Jordan Peterson, and they talked about just politics in general, and people welcome him in general.
Yeah,
it's kind of amazing, to be honest, how we can have a civil discourse between two opposing sides.
Right.
So I think it really depends on the person, to be honest, on the individual. when it comes to these kind of I don't know, controversial political views. It really does. I mean, take you and I, for example. We're not, I would think we're not too radical. We're not too right. So
Yeah, no, I would say so.
it's not that tough to, have a conversation and to be civil about it, to be rational. I mean, you have this kind of talk on your own podcast, Candid Chit Chats, right? You have different opposing views from
Yeah.
your other friends. And would you say that they're highly different from your own views?
Yeah. I mean, some of us are a little bit more alike in our thinking, and the rest of them are not so much. I'd say I have one particular guy in my mind that is a little bit more like he's more balanced, I think, on the political spectrum at least. And I feel like I don't really know his political points of view too much, but another guy I'm thinking of is I'd say he's more liberal. He's not like hardcore radical left, but he is pretty much kind of on the left, and then I don't know. I it's something that I would have to discuss with them, but I know they differ a lot. They for sure differ a lot. Now, it's anytime we're discussing politics or anytime we're discussing anything, it's very, very easy to get caught into this thing where if you have opposing points of view, to want to just win the argument. It's very difficult to like stay out of that mentality. You're to simply stay into a purely discussion-based mode. You're exchanging ideas. You're not trying to just win. You're trying to enlighten the other person into a, I don't want to say a different way of thinking, but just open up their mind to potential ideas, to a different potential way of thinking. And that's difficult to stay with and to stick with, especially when you have a dynamic where we're all holding different points of view, or at least to a certain degree, I'll take, let's say, the most recent podcast on game. Obviously, that my point of view is very different from the majority of people there in that podcast.
I actually listened to the whole thing of that. Yeah, I listened to the whole episode.
Oh, yeah, how'd you like it?
Wasn't bad.
Yeah.
Your sense of viewpoint to the table, it was good.
Yeah.
It was very rational, and you tried to, convey and explain the concepts at hand in respect to game very clearly. Right. I felt your other friend, who was very anti your view, wasn't rational. He wasn't that rational. He didn't have a lot of rationality behind his viewpoints.
And that's exactly why I also felt the exact same thing, by the way. And I mean, I can't like, remember we were talking about the three different types of truth before. There's your objective truth, your personal truth, and the political truth, right? I think this is a topic that's almost kind of like a personal truth, although I sort of want to make myself feel like the point of view that I have is it's much more rational to the point that it is almost like the objective truth, you see. But it is kind of a personal truth, right? Like, I can't convince him, and what I used to tell him was like, dude, I think you just have to go through experience to really get my point of view. And I don't know. I mean, I really don't know what to say, really. People are going to have their own points of view, what are you going to do? But I agree. Like, there was a lot of emotion in the argument, right? Because everyone goes through their own experiences. They have to protect their ego in regards to the decisions that they've made in the past with women. And if they hardcore protect the idea that what I did was correct and it was the woman's fault that she wasn't attracted to me, she just wasn't a quality woman, then I protect my ego, essentially. So it's very difficult to open up people to this way of thinking,
Yeah. I mean, that kind of topic at hand, it's very complex. And I feel like a bunch of young guys together aren't going to find the solution.
Yeah.
To be honest.
Yeah.
I mean, you've done your research. You've read The Rational Male. So have I. There's still a lot we don't know, to be honest. Yeah. We just have our own view of how the hierarchy in the game and alpha fucks, beta bucks, and we keep we keep going back to this
I know,
podcast.
right? Yeah.
We have our own views and our own ideals. Many people have their own. That's perfectly okay.
Yeah, perfectly okay.
So,
to each their own,
Yep, that is very good. I mean, imagine how boring it would be if everyone just believed in the rational male.
It would be very boring, actually. You would feel like, is this even correct? Honestly, you know what I would do? For some reason, I would start to think that idea is not true. I would have to look for an alternative. It's almost a weird way of thinking, but I feel like the majority of people don't really, I don't want to say understand, but like they don't know how it's supposed to be. So I feel like there's an alternative solution, you see? So if everyone believed in the rational male, I would think, okay, hold on. Is there something incorrect here? I would have to like double check myself. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. Because, I tend to, always question the rational male here and there. Because it's like, he says that people who believe in like soulmate and the one are mentally ill. He says all these harsh things, right? And it's kind of like, wow.
Yeah.
Kind of hard to accept at the very first, pretty much initially reading it. So
yeah.
it's good that many views out there are different. So
yeah, definitely.
Maybe there's hope in the world.
Yeah.
That kind of deal. But yeah, I mean, we could definitely talk about game, I suppose, in another episode.
Yeah, we'll have
I think you want, yeah.
We'll have an episode there. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The Academy one.
Academy. Sounds good. Okay. Looks like we're reaching just over 2 hours, just about.
Yep.
So if you want to call it an episode, fine with me.
Yeah. Let's call it an episode.
Call it an episode. All right. So, sorry for the quality of this time of the episode. We kind of cut in and out. I mean, we are communicating over Skype, and then we're recording our own audio pieces and compiling them afterwards. Yeah. Hopefully, you won't hear those interruptions like we did.
Yeah.
But we'll definitely fix it in editing. So, okay. Sounds good.
Awesome.
All right.
Cool.
Goodbye, everybody.
See you later.